Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Helena. I'm the executive director for the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce, representing 30,000 different business and civic leaders, and that is representing you. You're on here. We're really excited about today's online webinar. Now, I'm going to, I just want to give you a little background. You know what? Pierre and I go way back. And when I say way back, we've done a lot of pivoting throughout the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years. And I say pivot because we are always wanting to talk, Pierre and I, about marketing and the best way to market your business. And the mantra behind the Greater New York Chamber is how to grow your business. That's what you'll always see emails from me. You'll always get information about us putting on these webinars or seminars or the networking for you to connect with businesses. And nothing is more intriguing to me than marketing your business, because that's what I do when I call businesses. I want to hear how you market your business efficiently. And we do these online Tuesdays at 10 o'clock. We've been doing it, actively every week except for holidays. Tuesdays online at 10 o'clock. And one of the questions I always try to get in is, how do you get your business? How do you market yourself? And Pierre and I always talk about, for 3 months, it's social media. Then all of a sudden, if I ask the question on this to the group, they'll sit there and say, it's referrals. No, 2 days ago, it's Thursday. Tuesday, everyone was sitting there saying, I go back to my clients, I get my business that way. It's referrals. So it's really interesting to see, the trend during the year on marketing yourself efficiently. So that's where I'm going to stop. But Pierre is the founder and CEO of Zamana Analytics, and he does your analytics services that helps you, your business, identify improvement opportunities in marketing, in your website development, and through data analytics. And I am not a data analytics person, so I always find this intriguing. I always say to him, speak to me like, it's like AI for dummies. No disrespect for anyone. I'm calling myself a dummy because I like to know the most important thing about learning something is learning it from the beginning, so it's organic and it helps your business. So I'm turning it over to Pierre right now. How to market and network your business more efficiently. I'm really interested to see where we are and with the pivot in marketing. And I'm turning it over to Pierre right now. We have an active chat going on. Put your questions in the chat. We're going to leave about 10 minutes at the end for you to communicate, for us to ask Pierre some really good, fun questions. And Pierre, take it away.
Okay, everyone, good morning. As Elena mentioned, I am Pierre Du Bois. I'm the founder of Zamana Analytics. It's my pleasure to have this webinar to talk to you about how to market and network your business more efficiently. The answer to that is probably more complicated than the actual question, but we're going to streamline it as best we can. So to give an overview, let's see if I can. Uh-oh, it's not letting me change over. There we go. Okay.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, so to give an overview here, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of blending your online and offline messaging. I think that's, to Elena's point, a lot of times we've heard for years we heard about being online being very, very important. Then, of course, the pandemic brought out a lot of things in terms of how we're marketing, and then we zinged back to this. We want to connect and be around people. But what we're seeing is a little bit more blending. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about some ideas and solutions for follow-up after. So you're going to imagine yourself as being, I've talked to this person, whether it's through Alignable or LinkedIn or through a webinar. What should I be doing next? Some ideas to craft your content and messaging that will help streamline how you're coming across to your customers. And we'll talk a little bit about analytics. I didn't do more than 2 slides in this, but I wanted to kind of keep it very, very simple. So without further ado, okay. So the basics of this is that right now we are online as much as we are offline. The novelty of going to the internet and connecting with people has been with us for a while. And I can say that for personal experience, I've been in business for 16 years, and my business came out of the big drive to just simply have a website. Then came social media, then came the rise of video, and now we're in the AI age. So we have all these digital mediums that we can use to engage with our customers, whether it's a pop-up, which you can see in the left-hand side. Some of us are using social audio. There's platforms like Clubhouse and Chatter that are available. Of course, the Chamber, which we do with Zooms every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And then even just going to conferences, even though conferences kind of got toned down in the last few years, there's still a terrific way to network. But as a business owner, you need ways to try to balance the pros and cons of all this sort of networking, particularly if it's online. Thinking about online, there's some of the pros are reasonable scale. It gives you a chance to scale your message. Something like this, like for Zoom, being able to record helps you out quite a bit. It's cost efficient. You don't have to travel anywhere sometimes for the most part. And then it gives you some time flexibility as well too. You're not really stuck in traffic trying to get into a conference. And I'll raise my hand sheepishly and say, yes, that's actually happened to me. But there's also some cons on to do some of the online or virtual events. They can feel a little impersonal from time to time. Many people feel so that they can do better being in person. Um, Platforms sometimes distract us a little bit. If there's feature changes, sometimes we don't get online as crisply as we'd like to. Great example I've had for Clubhouse where I wanted to log in and it has this feature that lets you preview the rooms. But if I click on a room and come out and come back in again, it just kind of gets a little jinky as far as the audio. So those sort of distractions can come up. And then all of this can lead into what is a big part of this talk is trying to figure out how to follow up with people. Many times that we do things, whether it's alignable, even in a Zoom call, we're very compressed for time. And much of our follow-up is trying to figure out how do we connect with people further that will probably lead to a sale. And much of that answer lies in how we plan our omni channels or how do we plan connecting with people. This is a statistic, 89%. I think this was also from Gartner, if I remember correctly, but 89% of companies that had a strong omni-channel engagement strategy, they retained that percentage of their customers. And these days, that's a big deal. It's much harder. I wouldn't say much harder, but it's a lot of effort to acquire a new customer. And your sales and your ongoing existence as a business really depends on how well you retain the right customers. That big push at the beginning can be a big effort, but you want something that can help you retain. And that's a big part of why it's important to blend how we network online and offline so we can retain people much more effectively. So we want to think about how the integration can be an advantage. And so what we want to think about is your networking and then how you engage online can play into a retention strategy, some way of letting your customers or your potential customers be retained, not only become customers, but also retain with them as well. So your conversations must help customers discover your offerings naturally. And what I mean by this is that a lot of times when we start out, and we'll talk a little bit as we keep going forward, we tend to cram a lot of information in at the very beginning, probably too much so. And part of it isn't really a fault, it's more of just how we tend to speak. But if we plan ourselves just right, we can give our potential customers or even returning customers or the people we talk to bits and pieces of information that's digestible, things that they can retain a little bit better, things that will fit their attention span and help them to not feel overwhelmed by talking points along the way. So it's a big part of that whole marketing strategy, planning our objectives, planning our content, and how do we connect with our ideal audience. So when you have talking points, and I've kind of alluded to this a little bit. A lot of times we are cramming a lot of information in because we feel like if we don't get it in, we don't get that sale immediately. Our livelihoods depend on it. And while it may feel that way, we really have to figure out how to set up talking points a little bit, so that way we are not drifting so much or rambling so much into things. Our talking points should be setting expectations for our potential customers, and as well as even customers who let's say they haven't talked to us for a while. Those talking points should indicate how people will work with you. You should have something ready to explain that. Your talking points should also highlight your capabilities through technical detail. And that just means having each point explain bit by bit what you do and how you deliver it for that customer, whether it's a product, service, or some sort of experience. And then everything should be breadcrumbing to specific opportunities. And I say project opportunities, for that sounds like a consultant, but it's for everything. What are the opportunities for sales? What are the opportunities for your business? It should breadcrumb into something that can make that relationship meaningful. So let's focus on what happens after that handshake, mastering the follow-up communication. So as I've talked a little bit about talking points, trying to be brief when we talk to people is probably works very, very best at the beginning. And here's why. We tend naturally, as human beings, we tend to ramble. We are wonderful people. We love story. We love, telling our day, to our loved ones and everything else. But when you're trying to sell a product or service in your business, or even if you're a nonprofit, you're trying to gain support for your mission, the rambling can kind of throw people off because people's attention spans are short. We're very, very distracted online, and you want to give them a little bit of a piece of information that will help them understand who you are and what you're doing. And to be honest with you, it's not a fault, it's just something we have to practice. So we need to think about how we connect with people and how we breadcrumb our communication. When we first meet people, if you want to follow up, those first day or two is pretty is a great is a pretty important. It's not a hard rule, but it's usually ideal for following up. And we want to take advantage of some memory freshness of wherever it is that we've met somebody, whether it's in whether it's online or at an event. But the key to this is focusing on one particular facet of your offerings, your business or of yourself. So if you notice, when you talk to people, you get, ask who they are. And the next question would be, well, what organization are they representing? And then the question becomes, what is that organization offer? These are facets. And then when we get into offerings, people tend to cram in a lot of things. But what you want to do is focus on uh, very briefly what those facets are. And if you're not sure how to focus, aim to speak no more than 2 minutes each time in a talk. So that way, what you're doing is, you are talking about very specific things about what you do. 2 minutes is not a scientific number, but it's one that's used for presentations. I've used that for guidelines for putting my presentations together. But you have to think about that when you talk to people, so that way they don't feel overwhelmed. But so talk to them, take that time to pause. That gives that person a chance to talk, and then you can jump back into the conversation as well. But all these can help you at the very beginning in organizing a little bit of initially a little bit of a breadcrumb, so that way you can follow up. And then another thing to keep in mind is you want to use your other media, whether it's your marketing media, we're going to talk a little bit about social media, to help with some of the details. This is where where I feel like people give a lot of detail. Like for me, for example, for analytics, when I started, I focused on Google Analytics. And then as my business developed over the years, I started to focus on R programming, Python, and actually an adjunct. I actually started writing. But these are several things, and sometimes when we give all these things together, it can give a mixed bag. Your social media profile should be able to capture those things for you and allow you to share media as well too. So you have to make sure that's up to date. um Keep it dynamic. In other words, you need to refresh this, treat it like a quarterly update if you don't do it on a regular for sharing posts. And then also keep in mind that when you meet people in real life, you can also share profiles quickly. If you go into the search bar, there's a QR code that allows you to quickly connect with people, so that way you don't have to, that saves you some time and later on networking and following up and trying to find somebody on LinkedIn. So use those things to help connect with people, and then also make sure that your profile is reflecting some of that detail that you would have crammed in your conversation. Some of that detail that people would love to see, and that helps them understand who you are and what your business brings to the table. Um, and then keep in mind as you're with your conversation that you want, again, breadcrumb or plant seeds for your objectives. And this is not a hard rule, but what you want to do is raise the you want, when you ending off that conversation, you really just want to give a little bit of what the purpose is, at least before the conversation ends, so that way that person understands why there's a continuation. Do you are you looking, and you really want, you could be, it's hard to be direct, to be quite honest with you, but you should be. For example, if you want feedback, ask for that feedback. And you could frame it just like this: the most valuable thing you, person that I'm talking to, could give me today is a piece of honest feedback about what I've just said. If you want a sale, which who doesn't, you can say, my goal is to figure out if this is, the right fit for maybe potentially for doing business or working together. That's a fair thing to do. Being direct takes practice, and when we talk to each other casually, sometimes we're not always as direct. But when in professional settings, or even just following up in communication, we have to figure out how to be direct, how to give a purpose, and that purpose should be something that lets people know what the intention is. So we want to keep that in mind as well. Um, Now, a lot of times we use a lot of direct messaging, and that could be direct DMs through social media. Follow a quick follow-up email asking to join our email list and so forth. Or even sometimes people have gotten into the habit of doing direct messaging to ask for someone to come onto the email list. Anytime you're doing direct messaging, you have to keep in mind a couple of things. First of all, it really needs to be opt-in about it, basically. So from that previous slide, if you even want to ask someone, if you're talking to them face to face, that's more than fair, but there needs to be an opt-in. You don't want to spam them. A lot of times people will send 20, 30 things through a DM, and I'll be honest with you, I can tell off the bat whether I've met that person on or not. And so if they're spamming me, I don't even respond, and sometimes I even block. So, but design some sort of opt-in so that way you have something for your direct messaging. Keep the text bubbles brief. They should not be a lengthy um, rant about anything, basically. Anything more than like a 10 line, I think it might be a little large. Um, and you want to keep the exchanges relatively short too. I think if you get a long thread, it can be a little bit heady. That's telling you that there should be some sort of call or email or some Zoom session. But definitely you want to have some, at least some sense of keeping it brief in the conversation. And then the one big thing I would say also too is do not assume that everyone has the same tech you do. I've been on iPhones and even Android at some point in time throughout my career, but never failed somebody maybe on a flip phone. I've had a sibling that that's still on a flip phone today. Well, almost on a flip phone since up until a few years ago. But um, that difference in device can make it a little tricky to know, how people are receiving a message. So don't get too caught up about why they didn't respond very quickly. But when they do respond, if it seems like something is a little off, just you can ask them politely, maybe the next time, just to see if just make sure it's not overwhelming. So with all this, let's talk about getting your support media, your content in line. So I talk a little bit about these sort of initial encounters and using media to get into that. I and I also mentioned about, try to keep things brief. Well, your content should be helping you to keep things brief. And here's what I mean by this. It does it in two ways. First of all, it allows your audience, whether it's a new customer or old customer, to have some sort of material that explains a lot more detail. If you go to a car dealer, you're not going to have a dealer come and explain every part of a Corvette, even if they know in their hearts that if you're a Corvette fanatic, that you might understand the engineering behind it. The dealer is not going to sit down and explain everything from start to finish. There's going to be so what you want is some material that will help you to understand that product. And like I said, for the car, that could be an owner's manual. It could be maybe specialty brieflets. And you have that same opportunity as well. Now, these opportunities allow you to personalize the content, so you can tailor it to what, the types of customers you have, as well as the mediums that you have, as well as the channels that you have. So you can craft a framework to these things to help you figure out how to communicate effectively. So where's a good starting point? Well, one thing you can do is use a very solid SEO trick, which is content pillars. And I need to explain what this is basically. Content pillars was originally designed for websites, somewhat for landing pages, somewhat for apps, any sort of online documentation. And what they are is just basically topics. You can pick three or five that are designed for, it was really designed for SEO, but you can use this for sharing your content online and off. And each one of these topics should be relating to what you are offering. SEO has always been about keywords, and keyword phrasing and how those and the keyword context. So,
Here,
yes.
explain what SEO is. Explain, it's search engine optimization.
Search engine, yeah, search engine optimization, which is basically you're trying to get your content visible to the search engines. And I know that many of you have heard this before a million times, but this particular technique is supposed to be about helping you map out your offerings to that search. Now, for our purposes, for networking, it should also help you plan out how to be brief about your what you're offering. If you're networking with people, and let's just make this simple. Let's say that you are a baker and you specialize in apple pies, apple cobbler, and let's say peach cobbler. You're twice on the apples, once on the peaches. So you're thinking more in terms of your product, but then you also think in terms of, how your customers may be using that product. Are they coming to you to purchase those cobblers and pies? Or are they coming to learn how to bake their own? Or maybe you're a caterer that happens to serve a lot of cobbler and a lot of pies for events. So you want to plan a content pillar strategy where, yes, it could be for SEO, don't get me wrong, but for your networking, you need to think in terms of how it ties to your business goals, um, and ties to and your online content. So that way, even as you get done networking, your customers can also look at your online content and there's some consistency, and they'll get more information through your online that supports what you just said. So it reinforces. That's the idea. Um, so there's a lot of different ways you can do content. I put a few here just kind of as a starter for many people. Um, Things that can come up are, client questions. Let's say that you've been talking to people quite a bit and you have a new offering. I know from when I started, analytics was very, very new. So I paid attention to the questions that kept coming up, and that could feed into things in terms of a landing page, like a Q&A. Or these days, if you're doing something like a webinar or social audio, you can make up an Ask Me Anything type day and build it around those questions as well. So that's an idea for content. Leveraging industry news is a terrific way of building content. That puts you almost as a journalist. And I say almost, I'm going to use the air quotes, because journalists usually have a beat and they're following it very, very tightly. As a business owner, you won't be able to do it as tightly because you don't have time. Again, to the apple cobblers, if I'm building apple cobblers, apple pie, and peach cobblers, I have to focus on that. But I can put industry news on, hey, what's trending for apples, what's trending for peaches. That leads into behind the scenes images and for images and video. You can have behind the scenes content is a great way of sharing people what you do that you cannot explain when you first meet them. If I'm talking to you, I can just say I'm a baker rather than saying I'm a baker of apples and peaches. I've done this since 20 years ago when my mom first started to teach us and everything else. Getting more to behind the scenes is a great shorthand to convey what you do. And then over time, you may have some old content that you can repurpose that for social media or for email. There's a lot of different opportunities for that. Now, if you do now, we're going to talk a little about AI here for these next couple of slides. Many times people are awash in content. Content is a very general term. And again, this whole theme of networking, planning for networking means we need to get to some specifics. But thanks to AI, we have a couple of tools that can help get those specifics together. So for example, if you do a lot of writing, and I'll raise my hand and say, yes, I do a lot of writing. Google Notebook LM is a terrific example of a note-taking app with AI built in. Now, what Notebook LM does is that it provides people a chance to upload your documents, website links, and it puts together a summary. It can put together an AI written summary, an audio overview, which many people have used that for podcast, or a video overview, some sort of summary. So what it allows you to do is gives you the benefit of Gemini, ChatGPT, and so forth, but it's built around specific content that you provide. So that way it gives you a chance to come up with different variations for writing, short, long, or it can make even suggestions about it. So it gives you all the AI benefit, but for something targeted that could save you a little bit of time. So it's a great use for this. Quick footnote, Evernote and Notion, which are two note-taking apps, they also have AI built into their pro version. So Google's not the only game in town. So you can use any of these to get your game together. Now with Gen AI, Gen AI is a terrific tool for understanding content. They've gotten better in the last year or two, particularly with getting what's called deep research. I mentioned that for Gemini, but every platform now has a variation of this. Um, and then also for reasoning. Now I need to explain deep research and reasoning. Deep research is basically something where you're trying to get a lot more information on a query that you provide with citations, with a little bit more detail. It's a great way of doing a search for you, to be quite honest with you. And we're going to see more of that in coming up in the year ahead. There's much more platforms and things that are allowing us to do that. Reasoning, which is very important, shows it's basically a built-in feature that shows why the AI model is selecting these pieces of content, these online sources, to put together and craft a response to your prompt. So this Claude image shows Claude explaining to me after my very short prompt why, that's going through and looking for sources, and then it actually gives me the response. So these things can be very helpful in understanding why certain things are being selected. So that way it will save you time when you iterate, basically, or use those things for your written text, or in some cases, video text as well, too. Now I won't go through these too heavily, but there's a lot of assistance tools that have come into play, and hopefully we'll get a chance, maybe even another webinar to cover these. For video, you have many people have heard of Descript. Some people have heard of HeyGen. Even one of the Gen AI tools, Google Gemini, has VO. I think it's called VO 3 now, which does text to video, which where you type out a prompt, it will actually put together a very short couple seconds of videos. These can be very helpful if you're trying to come up with video to help elaborate on your product or service, and you haven't quite gotten a lot of images or videos to stitch together. These can help you in a pinch, basically. And then you have text AI assistants. And I've used it for this presentation actually, where they can help you for graphics. Napkin AI is a very popular one. The image you see here is from Napkin AI. I actually used that for one of the earlier slides. That can help you for diagrams. It can be a diagram editor. Can help you to come up with a perfect diagram that you can use for leaflets, presentation decks, even written material. Copy AI can help you in terms of links and citations. And then there's even ones for presentation. There's one good one called Beautiful AI, which can actually put together a whole deck for you just based off the words you use. Okay. So, so with all this in mind, so it kind of gives you a lot of things you can play with. You do need to have some tips for organizing your media so that way you have quick access when you need it. You can keep notes when you use anything with social media or networking. Um, I still use a lot of written notes, quite frankly. But one of the nice things is that you can take a handwritten note now and you have a couple options. You can, first of all, you can screenshot it into an AI tool like Claude, and it will actually come up with actual text. That could be helpful when you are planning your next email or when you are planning a written document based off of some notes that you had from a presentation or from a discussion. Those can be very, very helpful to you when you need to get something quickly into a digital format and maybe place it into a CRM. The second choice is you can also dictate. I'll say this on my phone, it's kind of hard to see because I got my blur on. I dictate into my phone, and my words can fill up in either not only a Word document, but also Evernote, one of the note-taking apps, and that could be a fast way of getting things out quickly. Um, Now, if you have images, once you've created your content, you want to keep a ready folder available. The image you see at the bottom here shows a folder I keep with my bio. I get people who ask me to write about my bio and my background, but I actually, they may not need the whole bio. They might want something very, very short. So I can quickly put together that content and keep a short bio and put together a short bio and then have that file ready as a PDF or a Word document and then share it quickly to someone so that way they are able to turn around and use that information quickly. Saves me a lot of time. And then my last bit I'll say is know your search shortcuts. The little column you see on the left-hand side is my bookmarks on my laptop. These are shortcuts to folders that allow me to get to certain things that I know I need to access very, very quickly. Knowing your shortcuts can save you some time later on as you're organizing or responding to people, on those, on your laptop. Let's see here. Okay. So with all this in mind, let's get to some analytics. This is my last section. Um, the analytics part has always been a little bit more elaborate than than sometimes that people typically hear. And part of it is that you're trying to take together data that helps guide you into where you should be spending your time. That's usually the best way of in this instance of helping you out. We hear a lot about surface metrics, and these are the things that you hear about, like, number of visits, number of times people clicked on a page. They are useful. They're useful at the very beginning when you're kind of starting out and figuring out if you should be on X, if you should be on Facebook. But the challenge is that they're not necessarily aligned with business objectives all the time. Many times you'll hear the phrase KPIs, I mentioned it here at the bottom, or conversions. Those are the things that you want to have to talk about, even maybe not necessarily talk about in front of a client, but when you sit down and you go back through and figure out where you're spending your time, those are the kinds of metrics you want to dig into. And to be frank, most social media platforms, they give you those surface metrics and some indicators, but they're not designed to lead back to maybe your website page, where you're funneling customers to sign up for a registration or a landing page if you're trying for an event. But pay attention to those clicks, make sure that there's activity, But then next we need to make sure there's some either conversions, or in some cases, this is a broader topic, KPIs, key performance indicators. Now, if you haven't heard that before, it's just all it is a fancy way of saying metrics that reflect your business objectives. So if your objective is to have sales, you want to say, I want to increase sales from the New York region. And you may want to put a metric on it by 15%. So now you have a benchmark and you have a directive by region. So that leads into um, I'm just going to touch on two parts of analytics for our talk today. Landing page and referral traffic. You can use that KPI to guide you to figure out which sources for a landing page, or which sources for referral traffic is getting you closer to that KPI or getting you closer to those conversions. So let's just assume you got your analytics set up. Yay. Uh, so in doing so, and you just want to take a brief look at reports. What you want to do is look at, maybe if you have something for a landing page for your events, you want to look at a landing page, which I showed a brief example here in the analytics, and you want to look to see if that landing page is getting a certain number of visitors over a period of time. You can use your best judgment on what that period of time is, but I would say break it down to 30, 60, 90 if it's a long period. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, to kind of give a look, get a sense of what the trend is on that data, and figure out which landing pages are consistently bringing traffic. And then look at things like, the time on page to give a sense of people are really looking at the material. Um, you can do this for a lot of different ways. People have used this for email campaigns, campaigns, but it does work for a website page if there's a particular item of interest that you want them to look at. But that's the key part, a particular item of interest, like a registration, or a particular purchase. And then the same thing can also happen with a referral page as well too. What you're trying to do is, now referral traffic um, will break down the different sources of referral traffic. So you may be making a comparison between, let's say, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then let's say direct, and I'll get to what direct means a little bit. Direct can be people who directly know your URL, the place that or the page that you're trying to get to. Sometimes that's combined with region or other areas. You can kind of make treat that as a proxy to say that people are familiar of this region, is particularly familiar with my website or page, and they're coming to it. And again, you can make the comparison in the report, how many visits you're getting, the session times that are coming onto that page. And you can make variations of this in terms of metrics. And there's a number of these I mentioned here. The number of people that are coming, the number of sessions, engaged sessions would be spending a certain amount of time on the page. These things can help you to figure out if there's particular content that's appealing to people, or if there's particular platforms that are working maybe better for you over a particular given period of time. And again, you can do 30, 60, 90-day period. Or if you have special events that you've gone to, you can say, hey, let's say from my networking event back in June to now September, what's the activity that's being drawn to either my website or my landing page. That's the best way. That's one big way to look at it. But both these landing pages, they're not the whole sum of everything, but they're good starting points that can kind of at least guide you a little bit on your online, and kind of help you to figure out, where to make adjustments along the way. So let's wrap up here for a little bit. So I want to give everyone enough time to ask some questions. So so your summary of your networking step ahead. What you're trying to do overall is you help your customers discover your offerings kind of in a natural way. Again, what you want to do is plan out some of the breadcrumbs a little bit about how you convey who you are and what you do. Keep it simple. Keep your talking points. Aim for a kind of a 2-minute, a 2-minute drill of who you are where you're from, and for your offerings, I would say keep it very simple. If you know you have a ton of offerings, what have you, i- focus on three big ones that lets people understand who you are. Um, if you have a lot of detail, and then for that ton, use your digital media to help elaborate on those details, to let people know, hey, on top of what we do, here's another service, here's another customer who's benefited from us. Use that to help breadcrumb and get that message out. Use content pillars. That's a terrific way, again, of it's used for SEO, but it's also, you can also use that in your networking. So that way there's an alignment between what you're telling your customers when you first talk to them to what happens if they come back and they search for those services or search for you again. Um, Use AI. Again, we mentioned some of the tools here to help streamline your content changes, to help iterate. That's what those tools really, really are for. Keep some things ready in the media folder so that way you know how to you can respond very, very quickly. And then use your analytics just a little bit just to give some guidance on where you can improve online that can help to make adjustments. And those sort of all these things together can help you blend your marketing message a little bit better with customers online and offline. So that way they get to know you a little bit better and you'll increase the chance of either gaining that new customer, or if you're trying to retain customers, have those chance to engage with them much more naturally. And with that, I am going to stop here to allow for questions. Now I know that I have not looked at the chat yet, but I'm going to do that now. So
Yeah,
thank you,
we're
first of all, for hearing.
here. Amazing, good stuff, of course. So put your questions in the chat. Do you want to go through it or you want me to ask? It's up to you.
You can ask. I think I got it up, but you can ask.
Okay, it's being recorded. It is being recorded. Uh, go back. Oh, I'm going, oh, we have some good questions. Hold on for 1 second. Hold on. Okay. Because some people ask me directly, that's why I'm going through.
Okay.
Okay, morning, message important. We talked about Clubhouse alignable. We structure the, hold on, glad to be a part. So sorry. There's a lot of chat between. Is your landing page your website or LinkedIn site? That's what I was looking for.
Oh, okay. I need to clarify that a little bit. Your landing page would be for something like for an event. It could be for something like a or a registration for registration for a webinar. Or it could be for maybe a white paper on products, basically. Many times could you use a LinkedIn as a landing page? I'm going to say there's a little part of me that's going to say it could, but you really don't want to do that. Landing pages really need to be a particular item that you're trying to get your customers to do. Whereas something for LinkedIn, LinkedIn is really much more of a I would think of it more as kind of like in between maybe the real time that you've maybe first met somebody or have bumped into them. It's a way of providing announcements of things going on, not only with you professionally, but also with things going on with your company. So LinkedIn has a number of ways for you to share media, images, video, make announcements. You can even host things through. I think you can host events through LinkedIn. So it's kind of think of it as an in between. Same thing for Alignable as well too. Alignable is not as feature rich on the profiles, but it's still the profile works the same way in being something to help remind people a little bit about what you do.
How would one segment and get your target demographic engage with your content? Good question. We talk about this a lot. I would say, posting articles. We talk about that on, at the online networking, right?
Yeah, and can you repeat it one more time so I can answer
Sure.
the question?
How would one segment and they said segment and get your target demographic engaged with your content?
you can the content pillar is a great way to start. Um, I'm going to assume that, and I'm just also going to assume that if you're offline, I'm just put a little asterisk here, that you may be at, let's say you're at an event that is, using a baker, for example, it might be maybe a baker's industry event or what have you, or something that maybe is very specific. But the tipping point I would say is when you get the content pillars, because a lot of times it's not just the words, it's also the context behind it. So if you know that you have a customer segment who is the customer segment may be more interested in baking rather than saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a baked good." That's you can put context around that your content pillar, and you can even play with that within a Chat GPT or a Gemini if you're not 100% sure about what the reasoning is behind it. But I would, but that point is a great point where you can kind of start thinking about the context and thinking about your customer segment.
Can you talk about omni-channel in more detail? What are some examples?
Omni-channel is it's kind of it's a broad term, but it's basically you have different different mediums where your customers are interacting with you as a stream. So a channel would be something like email. That's one channel. Another channel could be a social media platform, like Clubhouse, for example. Right? I'll say social audio for that one. Or it could be something like Alignable. But omni-channel is basically the key to this is that they're separate platforms where your audience may not they may be there may be a certain affinity for that channel just because it might be convenient for them. And that's the thing that you're running into more and more of. There's just a lot of different options. And your job is trying to help figure that. And when you look at referral traffic, your job is figuring out which type of which one of those channels is working much more effectively for you.
What is the for your time? You know, this person has been growing by referrals. What do you think should be the most effective marketing strategies to focus on best ROI of your time? We talk about this a lot too.
What is the best way of
ROI.
yeah, best way of figuring out ROI for your time on each one of the channels?
Yeah, I guess it's a follow-up from it's the same
Yeah.
person.
That's a terrific question. That is also an analytics question. That's why I'm smiling. Referral traffic, you can, and actually, this is I probably should emphasize this a little bit more. Referral traffic, when you're looking at different sources of,
Wait, answer that, but he said it's the best use of your time, ROI, best marketing strategy. But answer your question anyways, because I'm interested in that.
okay, yeah, you can look at I mentioned about conversions. Many times when you get referral traffic, you're always going to have referral traffic where maybe two or three channels. It doesn't have to be that number, but there may be two or three channels that may be getting more conversions than the others. So you have to weigh, things like how, so for example, let's say that you've invested a lot of time on Twitter, and you see referral traffic between Twitter, email, and Facebook. And you're thinking, well, Twitter should be where I should be spending my time. But when you go through and look at the conversions over a time period, and that's why I say 30, 60, 90 as kind of a starting point, you find that the conversions on Facebook were much more frequent. Or you find that you had conversions, even better, you had conversions from email, and you look at this and you figure out that the sessions were longer. So what you want to do is use those metrics to kind of order which one of the platforms seems to be giving a lot more lot more of that return of investment. And it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong with Twitter. It may just be that if you're trying to figure out which one of those platforms seem to be resonating with people, it's going to be the ones with the more frequency of conversions to it, the more ones that seem like there's more activity. And you can play around with the date ranges to help figure out how to get that done. I did that with a client years ago. It took probably about 2 days to figure out what their search pattern was based off of that.
You know what? While we're waiting for other questions, I just want to, give Kiera and I talk about this, But the Greater New York Chamber does export documentation. I'm giving you an example. We do certificates of origin, free sale. We get, if you are shipping out of the country, you need these documents to go through customs because they want to see the origin of the goods. We've been, talking about this, and now it gets picked up in AI. So, because I always ask people, how did you, they'll call the chamber and say, I need a certificate of origin. I say, how did you hear about us? And lately, people have been saying they type it into AI and it's been coming back to the Greater New York Chamber. So, using, I'm re-emphasizing, and I'm not the expertise on this, but I listen to Pierre, and I've been trying to do it for the chamber. Those pillars are really important because the more content, and also they like, which I've heard, change up the wording, because I heard Google doesn't like you to be stagnant. They like to see changes and updates all the time. Correct, Pierre?
Yeah, treat it like an oil change, just like you would for an oil change in the car. That's the best way to do it. I think as business owners, it shouldn't feel, this is not going to be a weekly exercise, but at least once every quarter, see where you're going with things. You're going to find there's going to be some things you might be able to continue on with, and some things may not. Again, that example I gave with the R with the return on with the referral traffic is a great way to do it. But for content pillar, um, it's based off of what people are searching for. And I know that that gets into a larger conversation about SEO, and particularly now with AI playing a role in search much more and more. There's a lot of debate about that. That's a whole that's a whiskey and a conversation basically. But what you want to do is you don't want to be so stagnant that by you go roll around to next year. Don't get me wrong, if you're still doing apple pie and cobbler, stick with that, but there may be different variations of when that apple cobbler is being asked for, or what people are, or the triggering events for when the context might shift just a little bit to maybe introduce an opportunity for you. This is how businesses continue to grow. They have to look at search periodically to figure out where to find those opportunities to connect.
Also, we're gonna, what, I want to do a deep dive on another one on, we talked about, or Pierre talked about effective messaging. And I've learned, I have learned, and I'm not the best at it because we have so much content here at the chamber. So I would email or on LinkedIn or Alignable say, oh, these are all our programs and services and benefits. But I'm like, what? And I found that the less is best. And we talked about that, and I just want to emphasize, because Pierre talked about that, and I think that everyone emails each other. And I think the next one is how to really do an effective email, because you never know for your business. It might work for the chamber, it might not work for Pierre, or it works great for Pierre and it's not working for me. So I think, talking about effective messaging and, Pierre, just highlight on that real quick.
Yeah, it's and this is it kind of goes to what I said earlier about people are having a lot of different channels and a lot of different ways to connect. Email is one of those things. It's kind of like vanilla ice cream, very soothing, goes well with apple pie and apple cobbler. So there's a lot of so email is very helpful, but there's a lot of ways that people are learning how to update their email content. Some people can, it goes back to my slide about the devices. Some people can get an email with maybe a very short or brief media with it, but if your customers are on a device with a flip phone, they may not. On the other side, some people maybe are on tablets and laptops, and an email can come through fine without any problem. Um, it's email gives a chance for you, and that's also another opportunity to practice that, brevity of message. You don't have to cram everything that's happened in your life in an email. You can have an email on Monday that talks about, behind the scenes, and then maybe another email for your followers and customers who can talk about, maybe something that's being on sale. but and you can segment that also to region or to customer needs. That's one of the advantages of it. But definitely take advantage of that content and being and know that you keeping those things brief is helping to connect with your customers. People are very distracted. It's very hard for folks that you don't want to give them a whole life message. You need to just give them just enough to understand who you are and what you're doing. So,
Absolutely agree with that. Also, I just want to, before people hop off, next Friday, I can't believe it's a week from tomorrow, September 26th is our annual business expo. We have complimentary tickets, just RSVP online. And you'll get to meet businesses and market yourself, and you can, learn about the trends that Pierre is talking about. So, you'll meet small, medium-sized companies, major corporations, local, city, state, federal agencies there. It's a one-stop shop for your business. It's a lot of fun. Bring a lot of business cards. I'm a business card person. Pierre will always hear me say that. But you know what? RSVP online at chamber.nyc for your ticket. Let me see the other questions.
hey, Helena, they
Yep.
asked if they want me to share slides. I'm happy to do that if that's okay with you. So,
Yeah. Just do you want to type in your email address, or do you want them to go to your website?
I, I'll type in I'll type in my email address. They're happy to connect with me there.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
we'll have to do like a Google Drive or something. It's usually with emails not good with presentation files are always larger than emails. I usually have to do a Google Drive to share it. But I'm happy to do that. In fact, I'll set up a folder after this so people can are happy to pick it up.
Oh, perfect. So if you have any other questions, put it in real quick. But I find that, you know what, I am always learning. I am so interested in marketing. Analytics, like I said, is over my head. But I think, you know what, there's so many, we talk about this, so many times we talked about the ROI on marketing because there's so many platforms, between the Twitter and the Instagram and the Facebook, and then you've got Alignable, and then you've got the LinkedIn, and then you have all the the Clubhouse and things like that. You're like, when do I do my work? So it's really hard to really pinpoint how much time that you give, and we talk about that all the time. But I think the bottom line for all of this is effective communication and marketing and emailing, getting that message out. And I'm writing it down because I think we should just do a whole webinar on how to create that message to get a response. And I'll tell you one or two things, and I'm gonna and we'll close it out. If you're sending an email and I am the first one, have spell check. There are so many people, and I know that my name, if you type in my name, it's Helana, but the AI and the computers do it ENA. But if you're sending me a proposal, the first thing I'm looking at is, hey, they didn't even take the time to spell my name correctly. So we talk about these little things that don't cost money, that are just, innate. Just and make sure that you have a signature on your email. We talk about this all the time. If you don't have a signature and you're about to, the person's about to do business with you, they have to scroll all the way down to the original. If you're in 5 or 6 conversations, you know what, put the signature on every single email conversation, because people don't want to scroll down. They get distracted. And then all of a sudden, a better proposal comes in, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to go with this person. So these are my my little things that I see, that you should just be aware of. Doesn't cost money, and like I said, you know what, if I send you an email and I spell your name wrong, call me out on it. So I know, but I try. Pierre, it's 11 o'clock. Thank you so much. Go to Zimana.com. He is always, I shouldn't say always, 99.9% on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock. Come online for our online networking. He just gives a great insight on it. He posted his information. He said main at Zimana.com doesn't work. Can you resend?
Okay. we'll tell you what, I'll send you my other personal one.
Yeah. And if you have any questions, and if you can't reach Pierre, email me and I'll just forward it to him. So just make sure, just double check that, he does get it. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, RSVP for your complimentary ticket for the expo. Join us. We don't have an online networking next Tuesday because it's Rosh Hashanah. However, we will be back on the 30th. So join Pierre and myself. We talk about this all the time, as well as everyone gets a copy of the chat, the list of attendees. It helps you grow your business. And we actually talk about the, marketing and growing your business. So again, Pierre, thank you so much. So great. This was so informative. It will be on Chamber TV. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you for having me too. I appreciate it.
Bye, Pierre. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Take care.